It's that time again. The Steel Striders have had their wriggling, grub-like fingers on the Golden Trench for far too long. We will soon send their ill-gotten gains to the sea floor. And by the way, it's not about making money, it's about taking money, destroying the status quo, because the status is not quo. The world is a mess, and I just need to rule it. Anyway, let us begin. I'm not sure it's necessarily broken or not, and I imagine the way that it works has a little bit to do with how your craft is designed. It's quite possible that my craft simply did not have enough yaw to bring the nose back down to make the bank and yank work. Because, you know, if you're rolling 45 degrees and you're using pitch to turn, what you're going to need to do to keep your nose from rising through the turn is to yaw down, unless the nose of your craft just naturally falls, which probably is not a great situation. Spawning a little bit higher than 30 meters. 50 meters is about our combat altitude. The Thundershock, being a blimp, despite being fairly stable, should also be spawned closer to its flight ceiling, because it is much more stable in the nearest flight ceiling, because of how buoyancy is suddenly lost. So this is shooting at the Thundershock. It's doing okay defending itself. It's not fantastic, but it's doing okay. Because it is tanking from an fairly expensive craft. Now, that craft is actively exploding, which is stopping me from looking at its firepower numbers. But that was reasonable. As you may have guessed, if you've looked at the build video of the Thundershock, just from the screenshot at the beginning, I did test it with the Rhea shooting at it. I think the Rhea took about 2 minutes to kill the Thundershock. At least 2 minutes before the Thundershock started coming down. At least in my test. The Rhea could probably also kill the Thundershock in literally one hit. This is really annoying, but I haven't found a way to fix it yet, so I'll just try not to look at the crafts that are strobing. Hopefully I'll be able to deal with it before we get to the Twin Guard. The Twin Guard don't have a lot of lasers, but they do have a fortification with lasers, and they have some pretty scary laser ships like the Abyss. The Twin Guard, people say, oh yeah, the Candle is really scary and that sort of thing. I think the Abyss is the scariest laser craft in the game by a significant margin. I do think it's a little bit more frail than the Candle in some ways. Some things it tanks really well, and sometimes it just kind of seems to explode. Okay, the Pequod, I believe, is a submarine, but it stays on the surface most of the time and dives down below the surface to go under vehicles. It's a good time to save, though. Always save from the depths. I should probably even use multiple saves, but I've never had one corrupt before. This isn't Skyrim. It just works. Let's get a little bit closer. And get all these guys. Big group hug. I don't think we even have to increase the battle size. We very nearly do, but we don't quite. Let's see who we all have here. The Resolute. It's already been featured. Tsunami. I would like to take a good look at it because I've not seen the Tsunami in a long time. Thunderchild. Little cramboat. Perhaps named because of the thunderclap, I don't really know. Cat Shark, we already saw that one do horrendous damage to the Thundershock. And the Allegiance, which you've already seen. So I'll just take a quick look at the Tsunami at the beginning. The Elephant should provide good coverage against the Tsunami. It's the only craft that torpedoes can hit, and it has good torpedo defense. It has decent flares as well, so hopefully they'll provide enough coverage. I'm going to spawn the torpedo bomber in at the highest altitude I possibly can, and really hope that it does not go into the water again. Just double check that I'm spawning the dandelion reasonably. I'm going to put myself on the dandelion. I have an attachment to this vehicle. Quite a bit of spawn and lag there. This is a reasonably high volume fight. I'm just going to give us a little bit of a pause while I find some of the enemy craft and then find our torpedo bomber and make sure it's doing okay. Before I move it out of the work in progress folder, I need to give it a little bit more defenses, make it a little bit more resilient, solidify the paint job, and fix this rolling issue. Basically all missiles, a lot of firepower. I imagine that this doubles as underwater sea whiz, but I'm not really sure. I'm also not sure what fraction of these are torpedoes and what fraction are missiles. The fact that they're vertical launch, to me, suggests that they're all missiles, and oh, these must be the torpedoes. Alright. Now, let's see if our torpedo bomber stays upright. This is one of the more important parts of the battle. If this splashes down, things are going to be very bad for us. Oh, man. I don't know why it was turning further upside down. That's really bad, though. Oh, is it going to right itself? Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Fantastic. That is wonderful. Oh, I'm taking damage. Maybe I should move to a different ship. Only 1%, but right in the cockpit. Let's do this at least. We'll regenerate a little bit of health eventually, hopefully. And I'll be able to see better. Yeah, I was at least going to check what my vehicles were targeting, but even that is beyond me. Looks like our Sea Whiz is not doing terribly. Well, we can at least see our cram volley. Oh, that's silly.
Engaging now.
The elephant was shooting here. Wonderful. We're not doing a huge amount of damage, but I don't think we need to do a huge amount of damage to it immediately. Now, I did look at what was going on with my torpedo bomber a little bit. Other dandelion took a lot of fire. What was going on with the torpedo bomber a little bit. And at least in terms of it using EMP.
Engaging now. Engaging now.
And how ineffective that EMP was being. And I think with the new EMP mechanics and the flat reduction that insulators get, you really can only put EMP on large missiles or with big payloads, because they function much better against flat reduction. It looks like we're trying to hit the tsunami with our crams, which isn't going to work very well. I think there's a negative altitude adjustment on the elephant.
Engaging now.
I wish I could do like a shift click style thing. Oh, well, that's really bad.
Listening.
Also explains why we weren't getting much done. I sometimes forget that sort of thing. Thunderchild is not a fast vehicle, especially when it's crippled. Still, that was a bad shot. There's still enough, though. The relative stealth of the tsunami, I think, is sheltering it
Receiving. Engaging now.
from our torpedoes, but it may now be the only craft that has a sonar signature, and we're actually firing torpedoes again. I should probably give the torpedo bomber some ability to get out of the water. I usually sort of figure that if my craft has gone into the water, it doesn't need to get back out because it's dead. The torpedo bomber is sort of the one exception to that. This actually looks like it probably has a decent sonar signature. Oh, those are some good hits. I love me some cram hits. These must be the missiles from the Dandelion. They're remote guided, so they can try to go against underwater targets. They're actually pretty close to working, too. Now, if they have a fuel tank on them, I could switch them to a ballast tank, because ballast tanks can be about 99% fuel, and make them neutrally buoyant. Oh, this is going to be quite the circle jerk. We may have to deplete them of resources.
Receiving.
I think repair tentacles, repairing in combat, is an incredibly bad mechanic.
Engaging now.
I put on attack salvage, so that even if it AI deads one of the materials factories, it'll keep shooting it. It's really important to do that when you're fighting against repair tentacles. So this has been a bit of a harder fight for us than normal. The Dandelion has been taking a lot of fire for some reason that I don't really understand. Maybe these are... Well, if it was taking IR targeting, it would definitely explain a lot. But it may even have a bigger sonar signature than the Elephant, because most of the Elephant is below water. The Elephant has a lot of wood on the outside of it, and higher altitudes give you higher radar signatures. Looks like we finally got some good damage onto the tsunami. So definitely some stuff left in the torpedo bomber to get it out of alpha, and I might replace it with a more literal bomber. I was thinking about making a bomber that drops magnet bombs that are neutrally buoyant, so you can hit submarines with them. So we've got a little bit of repair capability here. So we're just going to drop down
Listening. Moving out.
one vehicle to start.
Listening. Moving out.
It's going to be a little bit slow getting this built, but it'll begin to do a little bit of harvesting, and once its repair tentacles get built, it'll start help repairing the fleet a little bit. And we still have some stuff to defend against. It's nothing terribly scary, but it's not nothing either.
Listening.
Here we go. I usually don't bother to fight these fortifications, but in this case you actually kind of have to. It's one of the rare ones that is actually kind of useful. The grouper basically doesn't have weapons. This fight's at about 260 meters, we'll just put it there.
Listening.
We'll figure out which one it is pretty quickly based on whether or not it has blue lasers coming out of it. I'm pretty sure I remembered to retrofit this one. Looks like this fortification has an atlas. It was bobbing just enough to make these APS shells quite difficult to hit it with. Oh, a Falkenheim, right. I should have been able to tell those apart immediately, especially because it spawns in the adorable Duster Marines. I'm not sure what was going on there. It looks like the Thundershock's preference for altitude is winning, so it's not shooting at the Duster Marines currently. Here's the grouper taking some fire. I'm not sure if it has any armament. It's got simple cannons on it still, so it does have some armament. So the Deepwater Guard probably don't have anything that is entirely unarmed other than buildings. Missed with a few of the missiles, but that was probably some pretty good internal spalling from the Hesh. These look like belt feds to me. I have trouble telling blocks apart because I don't really look at them as hard as I should when I'm building. Looks like we're defending adequately. We're not really having a lot thrown at us, but we are at least defending what's being thrown at us. It's interesting how big a magnet the Thundershocks have been. I was expecting the Dandelions to tank for them, but this has not turned out to be the case. The Thundershocks have been taking quite a bit of damage, or a lot of incoming fire, which is making me thankful that I beefed up their defenses a little bit. I should really be able to identify the textures on these blocks a lot better than I can to figure out what the mimics are made from. Because to me this looks like the rubber texture, but I'm really not sure. With applique panels for pillows. Fortunately, we have a lot more firepower than the last time I killed one of those in an easy campaign.
Listening. Moving out. Moving out.
68 per second, so
Listening.
I don't have to put much in the way of a harvester there.
Moving out.
Finally put this guy to work. On the way in, I'll pick
Moving
up
out. Moving out. Moving out. Moving out.
pick up all this stuff. Just be a little cleanly. Alright, we're currently waiting to fight the Pequod, so I'll go over there, see if I can pull some of the other enemies into that combat.
Listening.
Also, I'm really going to hope that the Pequod does in fact stay above water most of the time. If it doesn't, we are going to run into trouble pretty quickly. I can't get into too much trouble placing the Thundershock. It should be able to handle spawning in just about any orientation because of how it gets its lift. So we're prioritizing the Kalmar with our fire at first, but it looks like we've already retargeted into the Pequod. That was pretty painful. It's hard for me to get a good look at it. I know I have seen it before. I assume these are supposed to be able to shoot directly at the underside of your vehicle. I'm assuming there's some type of super cavitation around, because otherwise it wouldn't make that much sense. I do think it's a cool concept, but the actual design decisions don't make a lot of sense to me. And these are probably very high payload magnet bombs. That part of the implementation makes quite a bit more sense. I don't get why it starts off on the surface, though. Maybe they figured that for an easy craft that it's not fair to pit a submarine against players. And I kind of get that. I don't even put submarines against the NPC factions. As you've noticed, I haven't really been using them. I may build one pretty soon, though, because I've been going with a whole displacement theme, and I've not built a submarine in quite a while, so I might build sort of the just general meta submarine of super cavitation, APS of some variety, maybe kinetic, maybe not. I prefer to use kinetic rounds when I'm shooting. I know that I'm shooting down into the water if I have to shoot into the water, so that I know I have a relatively small amount of water to shoot through. Because if you're trying to engage at long ranges, even with super cavitation bases, there still is water drag, and it is still quite detrimental. Now, I do actually have to check what the wind conditions are. Force the fishing hole, force Davy Jones outpost. Now, the fishing hole is not that informative. I am making an assumption that it is this one, which has the script to spawn Captain Cell's fleet. I could be wrong about that, but I don't really know. Alright, I will take this engagement. I think I'm going to use the Golden Trench as sort of my second major base for constructing vehicles. So I'm going to put an additional mega factory there. It'll take me quite a long time to build it with the craft that I have nearby. Oh, I spawned this too low. Whatever. I should check the firepower stats on these. I'm going to have to pause it because I have trouble getting units otherwise. Okay, so that's actually quite a bit of firepower, but presumably they have very little health on those missiles. We're getting some hits in. Now we're getting pretty good hits. We were missing a little bit before. Yeah, we still got a pretty good ratio of hits to misses for a target this small, with the small amount of detection that we have. Because even with fairly reliable detection, we'll still have the issue just that against a small target, it's going to have a moderately low detection chance. So it looks like it's fulfilling its role. The Thundershock is fulfilling its role reasonably well. Now,
Listening.
this, I believe, has entirely finished building. I do not believe I've put the Mega Factory into my quick build bar yet, because it's not really done. And I don't load it that often. But it is useful enough that I should probably put it in there. And my work in progress folder is getting really big, so I'm going to need to really finish some of those vehicles soon. And start sorting things out a little bit. Has a lot of resource harvesters though, so even though it's going to cost me a lot of my available resources,
Moving out.
should pay for itself pretty quickly. We're getting near the end of this recording session.
Receiving.
I'll probably give myself one more battle. I do not know if the Black Tip Shark is a submarine or not. Well, I think just for safety's sake, I'm going to take the torpedo bomber.
Moving out. Moving
I'm going
out.
to take the torpedo bomber and run it all the way down there. Maybe that'll be my last fight of the session. I'm imagining for whether or not the torpedo bomber immediately capsizes, it sort of depends on its orientation for whether it's rolling towards or away from the enemy that it's targeting. It looks like we should have been okay there, but then it decided that it just wanted to capsize. The enemy does have a distraction stick. We have signal processors. We do not have any way to dodge these missiles. I have no distraction at all. And it looks like our first array of torpedoes just went somewhere completely nonsensical. Oh, we're not doing good against that distraction stick. So this is the problem of distraction sticks. Looks like we took some light damage. Is that the torpedoes can go around them and then come back and hit the craft. In this case, they didn't, though. Because I'm pretty sure we use signal processors. Yeah, we do. Just very powerful distraction sticks. Usually 2 signal processors just aren't worth it. And I really have trouble when I'm just using one. Large missiles, I guess, are a little bit harder to distract most of the time. Still got a reasonable amount of firepower to it. I wonder if we're just tanking these missiles or if we're mostly outrunning them. Looks like we're mostly outrunning them. We're not as fast as we could be, but we're still pretty fast. Okay, so we are taking some damage. These just aren't very scary missiles. Yeah. That's why I don't have distraction sticks on any of my crafts. They all shoot their distraction away from them. Just way too many accidents like that. Definitely just shot itself with his particle cannon. I heard the particle cannon firing noise. We still had some issues there with the torpedoes knocking each other apart. I increased the stagger of them, but I may have to do it a little bit more. Yeah, they're still coming in way too close together. I'm not sure it's firing its distraction anymore. It's probably just going to take a lot of damage now. That's one of the reasons I don't make submarines as much, the below 80% sinking thing.
Listening.
Excellent, let's scrounge this all back up. And before I forget, we'll head ourselves back into the Steel Strider's territory.
Moving out.
Looks like the Onyx Watch has started making their move. In runs I haven't seen the Onyx Watch really doing anything terribly useful, or not just the Onyx Watch, I really haven't seen NPC factions do very much, but it does look like given enough time that they eventually do things.
Moving out.
And there's certainly action that's been happening up here. I've missed it, but things have happened. I believe that is enough from the depths for one video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit one of the dopamine buttons down below. I hope to see you again soon.